I swear, I saw her pour something into his drink. That's how it started. The moment I realized things weren't right in the palace. I was just a servant then, not someone important. I kept to myself, cleaned when I was told, and didn't speak unless spoken to. For that night, I couldn't keep quiet. I had to say something, even if it meant trouble for me. The Prince Ade was the true heir. Everyone loved him. He was kind, always greeting us with a smile. But his stepmother, Lady Bisi, wasn't like him. She had a way of looking at you that made your stomach twist, like she could see inside your head and didn't like what she found. Her own son, Kamal, was different, too quiet like a shadow. He stayed close to his mother and didn't speak much. It was during one of the royal feasts that I saw it. Lady Bisi sat across from Prince Ade, her face calm and pleasant as she reached into the folds of her wrapper. Her hand came out with something small and dark, and she leaned forward, tipping it into the prince's goblet. It was quick, so quick I almost doubted myself. But when Ade lifted the cup, something inside me snapped. I dropped the tray I was carrying. The crash made everyone turn to me. My heart pounded as I stammered, "My lord, don't drink that." The hall went silent. Lady Bisi's eyes narrowed, and for a moment I thought she'd strike me down with her glare alone. "What nonsense is this?" she asked, her voice cold and sharp. Prince Ade looked at me, confused but patient. "Why shouldn't I drink it?" he asked. I felt like my legs were about to give out. I couldn't accuse a royal, could I? But I couldn't just stay quiet either. I saw her put something in it, I whispered, my voice barely audible. The prince set the goblet down slowly. He looked at his stepmother and then back at me. "Is this true?" he asked her. Lady Bisi didn't flinch. She smiled, the kind of smile that made her skin crawl. "A servant dares to accuse me." She must have made a mistake. The tension in the room was suffocating. I thought I would be punished right away, but instead, Prince Ade called for the royal healer. When they tested the drink, it wasn't wine anymore. It was something black and sticky, with a bitter smell that made people cover their noses. The healer confirmed it was poison. Lady Bisi didn't even blink. She acted shocked, of course, and said it must have been some enemy of the throne trying to frame her. And just like that, the matter was dropped for now. But I knew better. I saw the way her hand tightened around her goblet and the flash of anger in her eyes. She wasn't finished. Strange things started happening soon after. A snake appeared in the prince's chambers one morning. Another time, the brakes on his carriage failed. And then there was the fire late at night while he slept. But each time, something stopped the worst from happening. A guard passing by at the right moment, a stable boy noticing something wrong, or the prince himself waking up just in time. I started to wonder if something or someone was protecting him. Then one night, I heard footsteps in the corridor outside my quarters. It was Lady Bisi, holding a bundle close to her chest, heading toward the forest. Curiosity got the better part of me, so I followed her, keeping my distance. She stopped at an old shrine deep in the woods. I stayed hidden and watched as she lit a fire and placed the bundle, a small clay figure, into the flames. She chanted words I didn't understand, but the hatred in her voice was clear. The next morning, Prince Ade fell ill. He couldn't get out of bed, and no healer could figure out what was wrong. That's when I realized she was using something darker than poison now. I told the palace priests everything I had seen. He gathered the other priests and confronted Lady Bisi. She denied it, of course, and demanded proof. The priests insisted on cleansing ritual for the prince, but they didn't have the authority to act against her without the king's approval. Lady Bisi was untouchable for now. And as she walked past me in the halls that day, she smiled. It wasn't just a smile, it was a warning. I still think about her sometimes, especially at night when the palace feels too quiet, and I wonder, how far will she go before someone stops her? The palace was buzzing with an unfamiliar excitement when she arrived. Her name was Nia, a traveler with no known past. Her beauty striking enough to leave people whispering long after she passed. She claimed to have come seeking refuge, living escape the chaos of a neighboring kingdom. Prince Ade, ever compassionate, offered her sanctuary without hesitation. At first, her presence seemed to brighten the palace. Nia was graceful, her laughter warm and infectious. Even the staff, wary of outsiders, found themselves drawn to her charm. She and the prince spent more and more time together, walking in the gardens, sharing stories late into the evening. It didn't take long before it became clear that Ade was smitten. What no one knew, not even Ade, was that Nia was not who she claimed to be. She had been sent by Lady Bisi. The plan was simple: gain Ade's trust, occupy his heart, and strike when he least expected it. Lady Bisi had grown impatient with failed attempts and sought a subtler, more personal method. Nia, with her beguiling beauty and clever mind, was the perfect instrument for this task. But the plan began to unravel almost as soon as it was set in motion. For all her cunning, Nia had not anticipated the prince's sincerity. His kindness was a facade, and his affection was genuine. He spoke to her not as a tool to be used or an obstacle to be removed, but as a person. Slowly, Nia became to flatter. Lady Bisi, meanwhile, was growing restless. She expected results, an illness, an accident, some tragedy that would remove Ade from her path. When nothing happened, she summoned Nia in secret. "Why are you delaying?" Lady Bisi hissed, her voice like eyes. "You've had countless chances. Do it." Nia hesitated. "It's not as simple as you think," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. Lady Bisi's eyes narrowed. "Don't tell me you are getting soft. Remember why you are here. Fail me and you regret it." Nia nodded, but doubt had already begun to seed itself deep into her. The opportunity Lady Bisi demanded came sooner than expected. One evening, during a scheduled dinner in the prince's private chamber, Nia slipped a vial of a potent, odorless toxin into her robes. She had rehearsed it in her head over and over, how she would pour it into his drink, how she would act shocked when he fell ill, how she would slip away unnoticed. But when the moment came, she couldn't do it. As Ade laughed and spoke about his dreams for the kingdom, his face lit with hope and compassion, Nia found herself unable to move. Her hand trembled as she clutched the vial beneath the table. She realized to her own horror that she had come to care for the prince. When the dinner ended, she excused herself, leaving the poison untouched. Lady Bisi, furious at Nia's apparent betrayal, summoned her once more. This time, the tension between them boiled over. You think he'll forgive you when he finds out who you truly are? Lady Bisi spat, her voice dripping like venom. I don't care anymore. Nia shot back. I won't do it. I can't. Lady Bisi's lips curled into a smile, though there was no warmth in it. You think you've chosen love? You've chosen ruin. And when he finds out the truth, don't think for a second he will show you mercy. The confrontation left Nia shaken, but her resolve was firm. She would not harm Ade, not for Lady Bisi, not for anyone. For the first time, Lady Bisi felt the foundation of her plans beginning to shake. She had counted on Nia as her final move, but now it seemed even her allies were slipping through her grasp. Yet, Lady Bisi was not one to give up easily. As Nia wrestled with her newfound loyalty and guilt, and as Prince Ade remained unaware of the true danger lingering at his side, Lady Bisi began devising her next scheme, one even more sinister than the last. The guilt was eating up Nia. Each time she saw Prince Ade's smile or heard his laughter, it weighed heavier on her. She could no longer bear the burden of her secret. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast long shadows over the palace gardens, Nia found Ade sitting on a stone bench, lost in thought. She gathered her courage and approached him. "My prince," she began softly, her voice trembling. He looked up at her, his expression warm. "Nia, what troubles you?" She hesitated, unsure of how to even begin. Finally, she blurted, "I haven't been honest with you." Ade's smile flattered. "What do you mean?" Nia knelt down, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't come here by accident. Lady Bisi sent me. She wanted me to harm you." The words hung in the air like a blade. Ade's face darkened, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. He stood abruptly, taking a step back. "You are lying," he said, his voice low but sharp. "You expect me to believe you were walking with her all this time?" "I was," Nia admitted, her voice breaking, "but I couldn't do it. I couldn't hurt you. Please, you have to believe me." Ade's anger fled. "Believe you? After everything? After I trusted you?" He turned away, his hands clenched into fists. Nia stayed on her knees, tears streaming down her eyes. "I know I didn't deserve forgiveness, but I'm telling you the truth now, because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then slowly, Ade turned back to her. The anger in his eyes had softened, replaced by something else. Confusion, thought, but also the faintest glimmer of understanding. "You had every chance to harm me," he said, quietly, "but you didn't. Why?" "Because you showed me kindness," Nia said. "Because you're not like her. You are good, and I couldn't destroy that." Ade sighed heavily and sat back down, his head in his hands. "You've put me in an impossible position, Nia," he said. "But if what you're saying is true, then you've also put yourself in danger. Lady Bisi won't forgive you for this." "I know," Nia whispered. Ade looked at her, And for the first time since she started speaking, his expression softened. I can't say I fully and completely trust you yet, he admitted. But I believe you are sincere. I'll protect you from her. Nia nodded, relief washing over her face. Lady BC was vivid when she learned Nia had confessed. It didn't take her long to plot her next move. If Nia was no longer an ally, she would become a scapegoat. A week later, a priceless royal artifact, the king's ceremonial crown, vanished. The palace was in uproar, and Lady BC wasted no time in planting the seed of doubt. I've always found it odd how Nia arrived here with nothing, yet seems to want for nothing. Lady BC mused aloud to the court. Perhaps we should search her chambers. The guards tore through Nia's quarters, and as Lady BC had planned, they found the crown hidden beneath her mattress. And the guards dragged Nia before the court. Lady BC feigned heartbreak. I took her in because she seemed so helpless, she said. But it seemed she took advantage of our kindness. Nia was stunned. I didn't do this, she cried. You planted it. You're framing me, the court murmured, unsure whom to believe. Prince Ade, however, stood abruptly. Enough, he said, his voice commanding. He turned to the guards. Release her. But my prince, one of the guards protested. The crown was... It was planted, Ade interrupted. I've seen Lady BC's schemes before. I've no doubt this is one of them. Lady BC's face remained calm, but her eyes betrayed her fury. Are you accusing me again? Ade, she asked, her voice smooth but icy. I'm not accusing you, Ade said firmly. I'm stating the truth. He stepped forward and took Nia's hand, helping her to her feet. From this day on, Ade declared, Nia is under my protection. Any harm that comes to her will be answered by me personally. Lady BC said nothing, but her smile spoke volumes. Her plans had been thwarted yet again, and she knew Ade would now watch her more closely than ever. As Nia and Ade left the court together, she whispered, "Thank you." Ade glanced at her, his expression unreadable. This is far from over, he said, but we'll face it together. The tension in the palace had reached a breaking point. Lady BC's demurrer had become colder. Her smiles rare and laced with hidden venom. Prince Ade, though more vigilant than ever, tried to maintain his composure and focus on his royal duties. But trouble had a way of finding him. It happened on a quiet night. The prince was alone in his chamber reviewing documents under the soft glow of an oil lamp. A shadow moved against the wall, and before Ade could react, a figure emerged from the darkness, a blade gleaming in their hand. The assassin struck swiftly, but Ade's instincts were quicker. He dodged the first blow, overturning the desk of his scribble. His shout alerted the guards outside, and they burst into the room just as the assassin lunged again. The scuffle was brief but intense. The guards subdued the intruder, pinning him to the ground. Ade, shaken up but unharmed, demanded answers. Who sent you? He asked, his voice firm despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The assassin remained silent, his jaw set, until one of the guards unsheathed his sword and passed it against the man's shoulder. Answer him, the guard growled. It was Lady BC, the assassin blurted, his voice trembling. She paid me to kill him. The room felt silent. By morning, the entire palace was abuzz with the news. The assassin was dragged before the royal court, where the king himself presided. Lady Bisi stood at the side, her expression unreadable, but her hands were clapped tightly before her. "Repeat what you said," the king ordered, his voice heavy with authority. The assassin bowed his head. "It was Lady Bisi," he said. "She promised me gold if I killed the prince." She said the kingdom would be better off without him. Grabs ripped through the court. The king's face darkened as he turned to Lady Bisi. "Is this true?" he demanded. Lady Bisi's mask of composure cracked, and for the first time, a flicker of fear crossed her face. "Your Majesty," she began, her voice steady but strained. "This is a lie. This man is trying to save his life by accusing me." The king's gaze didn't waver. "And yet, this accusation fits a pattern?" he asked coldly. "The poison? The fire? The snake? All these incidents that conveniently threatened Ade but left no trace of you? Enough is enough, Lady Bisi." Lady Bisi opened her mouth to protest. The king raised a hand to silence her. "You have betrayed this royal family and this kingdom. You would be banished from this palace and all lands under my rule. Guards, escort her out." Lady Bisi's face hardened. "You will regret this," she hissed, voice low but venomous. "This kingdom will regret this." The guards seized her arms, but she didn't struggle. She walked with her head held high, her steps steady, as if she could already accepted her fate. As they passed Ade, she stopped and turned to him. "This isn't over," she whispered. "You think you've won, but you haven't. Not yet." As the court settled, the king addressed Lady Bisi's son, Kamau, who stood silently in the corner. "Kamau," the king said, his tone less severe, "you are young and innocent in this. You may remain in the palace, but understand this, your mother's actions will not be repeated. Is that clear?" Kamau nodded, his expression unreadable. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said quietly. But later that night, as Kamau sat alone in his chambers, staring out at the moonlight courtyard, his face twisted into a gleam of hope. "My mother may be gone," he muttered to himself, "but her plans aren't. I'll finish what she started, and when I do, they'll all regret ever crossing us." A cold resolve in his voice echoed through the empty room, a chilling promise of what was to come.